New York hip hop is killing it. You know, New York is like the epicenter. It's the genesis for hip hop. That's the Garden of Eden for hip hop. Everything was kind of birthed from there, right? Then you get some cats on the West Coast, on the other side of the country, starting to rise. Did you see the tension? Did you feel like the competitive spirit on the East Coast when you was over there when the West Coast started making noise?
What I always saw and what I always noticed was just the way that, people from New York had a certain, just a certain arrogance and a certain way of not really taking, rappers and rap from other parts of the country very seriously from early on. And that created, like this divide where people was like, F them, you know what I mean? Like, our is banging out here. I don't know what you're talking about. So, I think I just really tried as hard as I could to try to, bring in people that had an open ear to music as much as possible. I think we did a pretty good job with that over the years. Again, we had our ups and downs and our hits and misses here and there, but, I think overall really focused on that.
Soren is best known for being one of the main editors for the Source magazine when the Source was the Source. You know what I'm saying? He was up there when they had, when the mics was everything up there. That's all a rapper cared about was getting 5 mics in the Source.
Yeah, that was something a lot of people strove for and few got.
Yeah, very few people, man. I bet you had some people mad at your ass, didn't you?
At times, but that was more when I was writing. Because when I started writing for The Source back in '95, that was more of when I would be reviewing a lot of albums. But, there'd be a little bit of trickery. They'd change, take out paragraphs, add paragraphs, change the mics that I gave it. So, thankfully, when I wrote for like the LA Times or the Chicago Tribune, they didn't do that really. I only had 1 or 2 times where they talked to me about it and changed stuff, but literally I reviewed hundreds of albums for them, whereas The Source, that was a much more regular occurrence.
So when you had your radio station, did you play West Coast music?
Absolutely.
Or you did? It was like mixed?
Yes.
I mean, that's how we got a lot of our breaks. Because
that was one thing about Boston that was different. Boston was a city different from most of the East Coast, where like if I was in New York or Philly or something like that, I probably wouldn't have got exposed. But Boston, they with, Ghetto Boys, they
exactly
NWA, they with all kind of music. They weren't like just on the New York. Even
what kind of rappers did you like from the West Coast then?
I mean, Easy, NWA. I mean,
it was like it wasn't too much.
It wasn't there in the beginning. There wasn't too much
Eiht,
West Coast rap. I mean, I came out after the fact of Easy and NWA.
About 90, right? 1990.
Yeah, I came around 90, 91. But like you said, before then, we didn't really have no identity as West Coast hip-hop.
Was it a lot of bias over there when it came to the mics and everything?
From my experience, yeah. It was very East Coast-centric, very xenophobic to anyone that wasn't from New York, and it was disappointing because, as you and I both know, Steele, it's like we love so much rap from all over the country, and there was such a obvious, clear, and very documented bias that they had to where they just didn't like the people that worked there. Almost all of them were from New York, born and raised in New York, and really only liked New York rap. So because of that, you didn't get a lot of people that had a lot of background like you or me. You being from Ohio, me being from Maryland, that really wasn't much of that. So, to get somebody that loved Above the Law like I did, or would want to listen to MC8 all day like you would, that wasn't happening.
What was the vibe back then? Because you was on the East Coast. You was an East Coast-based magazine. When that started making noise, was it a lot of hate really in the air? Like, oh, that ain't this gonna go away?
You mean the West Coast?
Yeah, like as far as West Coast music.
I wasn't really tuned into that. Like I said, I already had an open mind. I'm sure there were people, in New York and around, our office or whatever that might have felt that way. But I didn't.
See, that's what I want to know. Don't give us the politically correct answers. I want to know if it was a motherfucker that worked in that office like, the Chronic, man, it's some bullshit. I don't want to hear this, all this. Yeah, okay.
I know by that time, we was on point as far as music concerned. By the time the Chronic came out.
The Chronic was one of the most, important even influential turning points in the Source with that cover with Dre with the gun to his head. You know, we put that out before the Chronic came out. I went and tracked down Dre. I had to go through Suge and got them to agree to give us the exclusive interview and do that cover. Heard the album, was going crazy over that album before, you know, it came out. So we dropped that cover like a month or two before the album actually dropped. And that really helped blow the Source up even bigger. That's probably my favorite cover.
I want to know was there any tension? Because, you know, y'all used to rate the records, give people the mics and all that. Did you ever have any tension over the situations of rating people's albums?
There were some moments in, like, when I said how, like, my partners had left in, like, 93, 94, there was some moments where the Source started getting into it with artists. I don't know if you remember, there was an Ice-T beef going on. Yeah. There was a Public Enemy. Cube actually dissed the Source on Hand of the Dead Body. Yeah, it was just a whole bunch. Cypress Hill. There was a whole thing going on between Cypress Hill and the Source where we really helped blow Cypress Hill up. Like, you know, before they even came out, we were pushing them in the magazine. We loved Cypress Hill, helped blow them up. But then there was a falling out between them and some of these editors at the Source that were writing whatever. I had a whole thing with them where they ran up on me down in Miami at one of the music conferences, you know, behind that. And, you know, nothing happened. I was able to talk to all of them. It was like 15 of them with, you know, all the Samoans they ran with. You know,
the Booyah Brothers.
Yeah, I was down there by myself at this music conference, you know. But anyway, you know, so stuff like that. People definitely took the rating seriously, but you know, we didn't have to deal with too much drama, fortunately, over the years.
So you never had nobody run up in the office, man, like, what the hell going on, man?
It wasn't nothing, like, crazy. Again, we fortunately didn't have any, like, crazy type situations.
No issues with Suge Knight?
No, I always had a great relationship with Suge. He was always, you know, respectful to me and very supportive. You know, like from that first cover with Dre, you know, he's really helped make that happen. And even with the 95 Source Awards, you know, a lot of people don't know, he spent like over $100,000 on that set that opened up the show. You know, when Death Row had the jail cells and everybody performed. You know, we didn't have that kind of money. This is our first time ever televising the Source Awards, and he's really the only label that stepped up and spent that kind of money. A lot of the other labels supported. That was the whole way I was able to make it happen, was because of the relationships I had with the Suges, the Jay Princes, the Puffs, you know, the Russell Simmons, the Leor Cohens, all the different players, you know, to get everybody to come together, you know, and do it. But, you know, that really made the show look on television way doper. You know, that opening set was, you know, one of the most dope probably performances ever on an award show. So, no, I never really had any drama with Suge. Back
then, you know, the technology wasn't there as much for people to be able to move around as much, or to, you know, it was a different time, man. You know, so most of the people there that worked for the Source were from the New York area, and those people liked the music they liked, and is from where they're from. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also like, I felt that they unfortunately didn't give everybody else a fair shake and didn't give the respect due to the other regions of the country, and I think that hurt the Source, and I think it also hurt rap.
What was going through your mind when that whole night happened? Was it chaos? Was it tension in the air, man, and thick? Because we right in the middle of the war almost then. That's like right at the start of the war.
It was gang attention. I was there.
Yeah, well,
I presented an award there with Aaliyah that night.
Yeah, that was an interesting night.
There was gang attention. I had beef with Quick that night.
Right.
Yeah, it was tension in the building.
Because that was the night that MC Eiht, because he was up there with the whole crew of people, and you was sitting right in the stage.
Right in the front.
Yeah, I didn't
right in the front.
want to do that though. I would have, you know, I would have said something. They kind of threw that in because that wasn't part of the rehearsal.
Yeah, they tried to diss me
about the wife or something.
Yeah, they tried to diss me on stage during the show. Yeah. We was ready to fight.
There wasn't tension going in there like, a lot of people think about, you know, kind of what you were saying, like they think about the Source Awards as like the start of, you know, where things, you know, go left and everything that happens after that. But, you know, I don't look at it like that. It's like, you know, there was no tension. Pac was in jail, and going into that night, nobody knew that Pac was coming out and gonna be on death row.
Right.
Okay, so Pac had his drama with, you know, Big and Bad Boy that had been going on while he was in jail. But me putting the Source Awards together, you know, I didn't see any, you know, beefs. There was no problems at any point, you know, between Death Row and Bad Boy at this point. Now, you know, and then there's differing, you know, opinions. Like one of the things about that show, like that I noticed is, you know, when you watch the 95 Source Awards, Bad Boy, you know, the Death Row opens it and kills it with that performance. But before Suge goes on stage, there's a Bad Boy performance, a medley where he had everybody there too, you know, Craig Mack, Total, Big, Little Ken, Junior Mafia. But at the beginning of that, Puff's kneeling on the stage and he's saying this on the spotlight, you know, I live in the East and I'll die in the East. You know, now that's before Suge goes on stage. So I never had the opportunity to have this conversation with Suge. I hope, you know, that I will one day to find this out. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, that might have been something, you know, that made him feel a certain way, you know.
Probably definitely kicked it off.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like you throwing darts then. You know what I mean? When you say, you know,
right.
I live on the West and die on the West, you know what I'm saying?
We all know everything, you know, that happened. But like we had talked about, I guess, before we really got on air, it's like the real situation between Death Row and Bad Boy doesn't start until a month or so later when, you know, Jake gets killed down in Atlanta. That's really the start of the violence, the drama, everything going crazy from there.
When you saw Suge go up there and say, and you knew where he was going, if you don't want the executive producer dancing all in the videos, was your heart just beating like, oh man, it's about to go down?
I mean, you know, of course I was like, oh man, what, you know, the room got loud, you know, because, you know, he kind of got booed, you know, because it's 5,000 people in there. You got maybe not even 1,000 in the front. That's the industry people. But the rest is people from New York.
Exactly.
You know, who bought tickets to sit in the back and upstairs and everything. So, you know, I was in the back of the theater, like just walking around. I would, you know, be just trying to check the temperature, see what was going on out in the crowd. So I kind of remember, you know, hearing that and the commotion. And I, you know, made the beeline to get backstage, and, you know, Suge and his guys, like the back of the theater in the garden, it's like stairs that go up and down to different, you know, levels of the backstage and dressing rooms and shit like that. I just remember going over on that side and it was like 50 guys just running up and down the stairs, like, you know, kind of causing a ruckus, just yelling, screaming, whatever. And then Puff was over on the other side of the stage, and I went over to the other side of the stage. He had a bunch of people around him, and he was really upset about it. And, you know, but he decided to kind of take the higher ground, you know, and not, you know, respond or whatever. And he calmed down, and, you know, so there wasn't no, you know, it was, you know, there was tension, but there wasn't even a punch thrown that night that I've ever heard of. And sometimes people just make it out like it was much more, and make it out, you know, like that's really what caused everything that happened afterwards. And, you know, to me, that's part of the history that, you know, I want to try to get told correctly and get out there.
Yeah, because I've heard through the years, I've heard about a girl claiming that she got slapped with a bottle or something like that outside the Source Award. Somebody got cracked with a bottle or something like that, so that wasn't true.
No, I don't think being inside, I don't think I witnessed any actual scrapping or actual fighting. So, but it was serious tension. And that's serious tension.
And that's a good thing, man. So now the war is on. And you're right, it just didn't start that night. It had been bubbling kind of, because if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, James, but Suge and Puffy was actually hanging out pretty tough at one point, wasn't they?
Yep.
They was hanging out, you know, they was boys, so that probably was Puff shocked, like, man, this is supposed to be my man, and he up here, you know what I'm saying? dissing or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
It was at that point, Suge wanted to control.
Yeah, Jay, I don't, like I said, I never had no problems with Suge. I've had talks with Suge and all that. What sparked him to do that night?
It was just a takeover. It was just, I'm gonna step on people's toes. I don't know what it was. I think Suge wanted somebody to put me. Puppy was like, that ain't happening. He actually stood up to him. And that was a sign like, who the this nigga think he is? So Suge felt a certain kind of way. And then it just started happening. I think it was more he say, she say, bullshit that was going back and forth from New York to us. And Suge was getting it. And it was only one way to reply to it. Okay, let's start poking needles at them. Let's start being disrespectful.
And then you couple that with the Tupac stuff, because I don't heard, there's so many stories about that, you don't know what's true or not true unless you was there, you know what I mean? Because I know Biggie and Tupac at one time was running tough.
Sure.
Because I could swear DJ Bobcat is my god brother. DJ Bobcat is my god brother. And he did a lot of work with Tupac prior to him coming with, therefore like them early albums before Tupac became the iconic dude he was. And I remember a few times actually seeing Biggie with Tupac. But this is back before either of them dudes was who they were. So now the war is kicked off, man. Everything is crazy. How did that impact you doing business? Business still moving on, of course, but now everybody ultra sensitive. So if it look like you picking a side, have you ever got accused of picking a side?
No, that's just something I really try to navigate very carefully. Just, that kind of, sensitivity to situations, not wanting to ever be in a position of, inflaming a situation. One of the things that I did in '96, while this stuff was going on, we couldn't do a Source Awards. That, it just wasn't the environment to do that, so it did put a stop to that. But I did a cover with Suge in the summer of '96, the one, where he's sitting on a Rolls Royce. And, get a real in-depth interview. But on the front cover, you'll see it says Suge Knight, and then it quotes, "It ain't no East Coast, West Coast thing," which was a quote from him in the article. So to me, that was something to try to get that message out there to people. Like, this isn't an East-West thing. This is, obviously it's something, it's a personal thing, that was going on. So, that's an example of a way that I would try to, help a situation if I could, like that. And just not get into just printing a bunch of, inflammatory shit that's going to end up, leading to, some real consequences.
Yeah, people don't do that today because people are printing any damn thing not knowing they could get knocked down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now we going through all that stuff, man. Then you had a whole thing that happens in the night of Las Vegas. In Las Vegas when Tupac got killed, right? And I think that's when everything kind of slowed down from there. You know what I'm saying? Kind of slowed down. Then Biggie got killed, right? And that's when everybody was kind of like, man, this shit's real. You know what I mean? And that I don't think had nothing to do with no hip hop. I think that was all some other going on,
Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
I just don't think it was about the music, man. I think it was a lot of other shit involved in it.
Well, you got two guys that's turning and found a way to make money with record sales and everything else, and they called it a beef. So now they got neighborhoods fighting against each other.
That's what I'm saying.
So they turned it into a gang-banging, on wax type of shit. Mm-hmm. So now you got the Bloods and the Crips fighting, and people was loving it and eating it up and buying all the music they can buy from both sides. So what they wanted to do, it worked, because they made a gang of money off this doing this beef. So you can't go and tell everybody we rehearsing this. We ain't really doing it for real, but this is just a show to make money. So all the guys in Compton, all the guys in New York, all the guys in the South Sides and everybody else, they believe in this is real.
But that's what I'm saying. So it turned to some street.
So when it turned opposed, but it got music, it got rappers involved, and they been involved, and they the biggest ones promoting I hate you, I'll your wife bullshit. Who's gonna react to that? The nigga that they talking about.
Smooth Cut Productions.